Okay, well, you might think that I'm done giving gifts to my wife, but no, I've got a couple more surprises for her. First, I have this lovely can of beefaroni, which is a cylinder. In this video, we're going to talk about the surface area instead of the volume of prisms and cylinders. And here I have a lovely box, also known as a rectangular prism. And this is not just any old hairdryer, it's a space-saving Compact Pro hairdryer. I think she's going to love this. So now the question is not how much could we put in the box, and by the way, this is a pretty fancy box. I'm not sure I can say that about the can. But I'm not concerned about the volume here. I'm considering how much of my wrapping paper am I going to need to use to cover this thing. And we need to learn a word called lateral. It's a fancy word for side. And I'll start with a cylinder because there's only one side to this can, right? That is the round part here. This is all the lateral, or the label. That's a good way to remember it. The label is the lateral surface area. And then we have the circles on top. Those are not lateral. Those are the bases. Base 1, base 2, we got 2 of them. But if we're just calculating the lateral surface area, we have a piece of paper that looks like this. And, you know, it should fit around the can. I think I cut it. Oh, this is my bad one. Let's see. Here we go. I've got a good one. And I cut it just right. She'll never know what this is. She's going to be so surprised. All right, so one dimension of this piece of paper is this height, right? But what is this other dimension? This other dimension is quite long. And where did this length come from? Well, this length is actually the perimeter of our base. And for a circle, we're going to call that circumference. So here, I'll put it back on if you don't believe me. Yeah, the length of this rectangle comes from the circumference of that circle. I'm just unraveling it to get this width. And there we have. So now it's just length times width. In other words, height times circumference. And we can calculate the lateral surface area. Now what if you want a total surface area? Well, there's 2 pieces, literally 2 pieces missing. And that is the area of the base. There's Lucy. And area of the other base. I got Snoopy on there. So if you put these all together, we will be able to calculate these. And I'll switch to paper in a minute and we'll look at those calculations. Let's talk about the surface area prisms. Before we calculate lateral surface area, you have to choose a base and a height. So I could make this nice and tall. So this is the height, and then our bases are these little guys on top and bottom here. But if I set this down here like this, now I've got a little height, and I'm going to call that the top of the box. That probably is the top of the box, right? And that's the bottom, the other base. So lateral is there are actually 3 right answers to this question. What is the lateral surface area of this box? Well, if we're talking about this lateral surface, then we've got one answer. If I tip it like this and say this lateral surface, I get a different answer. And then there's even a third way to talk about this, the other way. Well, I'm talking about the tall way. I'm going to set this down so it's got the skinny bases. I think you've seen enough of my face. We'll just go down here to the counter. And so, again, the calculation is going to be height times perimeter of the base. And here we have height. And what is the perimeter of the base? In this case, it's going to be length plus width plus length again plus width. So that's 2 lengths, 2 widths. And it goes all the way around. I would cut it right here so I don't overlap. Well, if I were wrapping, I probably would overlap, but if we're talking about surface area, it's just going to be the perimeter times height. Now, if I want the total surface area, I'm again missing 2 pieces. I've got a base for the top and a base for the bottom. So the total surface area will be 2 times the area of the base was one of these, which was height times perimeter. Let's take a look at what those problems look like on paper. So let's take a look at the formulas that we've gone over. With volume, we had what? Area of the base times height. Now with lateral area, this is, of course, this is cubic units, excuse me. And then over here, lateral area, instead of doing area of the base, it's the perimeter of the base times height. And that gives us square units. The total area is just taking this number and adding 2 of those. So those are the general formulas. Let's take a look at a cylinder. A cylinder, well, the area of the base is pi r squared, and then you're going to multiply the h. But that is the particular formula. Over here we've got lateral area. I need to write these again, excuse me. And what is the perimeter of the base? Well, that's the circumference, 2 pi r. And then we multiply that times height. Down here we take that number, lateral area, and add 2 of the bases. And what is the area of a base? Well, we saw it over here was pi r squared. So we take 2 of those. And these 2 numbers are quite similar. So you'll see 2 pi r times h plus 2 pi r times r. Let's do a sample problem. So let's say our Chef Boyardee can has a radius of 1.5 inches and a height of 4 inches. What is the lateral area? So here we have r equals 1.5. Here we have height equals 4. Let's get our focus back. Hello, focus. Focus. There we go. What is the lateral area? Well, the lateral area is the perimeter. Perimeter in this case is 2 pi r. That's the circumference times the height. 2 pi r in this case is 2 of these radiuses, in other words, the diameter. So 3 times pi. So I'll say that again. I'm taking 2, kind of skipping over the pi. 2 times r. 2 times 1.5 is 3. 3 times pi, we'll just call that 3 pi. And now that's multiplied times 4. That gives us 12 pi square inches. And yes, we can just leave pi as pi. That's an exact answer. If you want, that's a little bit estimated. If you do 3.14, it's about 37 square inches. So for a prism, we've got this formula. Again, this is like the general formula. We've got area of the base, L times W, right? That's just the area of that lid, times the height. But that just turns into take the 3 numbers, multiply them. So volume of a rectangular prism, about the easiest thing we have. Find those 3 numbers, multiply them. For surface area, the lateral area, again, being careful what we choose as a base. I mean, you get to pick, but if L and W make up the base, then you've got your height there. And so here we have the perimeter of the base times the height. And then, of course, total area is that number plus 2 bases. Now, if you take a look at this, you actually get a pretty simple formula for total area. So a lot of times on formula sheets, you'll see this. 2 sides that are L times H, 2 sides that are W times H, and 2 sides that are L times W for total surface area. Let's look at a couple. Let's look at one example problem, and then we'll be done. All right, so here is a box or a rectangular prism, and we're told that the length and the width are 4 and 8. I'm going to call that my base here. And so what is the perimeter of the base? It's 4 and 8 and 4 and 8. In other words, 2 4s and 2 8s, and that gives you 24. 4 plus 4 plus 8 plus 8, 24. So I'm just going to write that down. Well, I'll write down perimeter times height, and then we'll see that that was 24 times the height. Well, if this is the base, 10 is my height. And that just gives me 240 square inches. Easy. Now if I want the total area, I need not just that wrap around the sides, lateral, but I need the 2 lids. The area of this base is 4 times 8. So by the way, I'll just bring this down. 240. But now I need the area of 2 bases, capital B being the area of a base. And 4 times 8 is 32. And I don't just have one 32, I've got a bottom lid as well. So that's 64. And you get 240 plus 64, 304 square inches. Now remember, in the formula sheet they had kind of a shortcut for this, and that was 2 sides, which would be 4 times 10. So 2 of these. 2 of these, let's see, I'll do the fronts here. This is an 8 by 10, so 2 of these. And then again the 2 bases, which were 8 times 4. So this is the same thing. I'm just showing you that you might use this formula of, where do we have that formula? So if you plug that in, we should get the same answer. 2 40s plus 2 80s plus 2 32s give us 304 square inches. Okay, let's practice in IXL.